Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. On behalf of the Anderson Falls Heritage Society, welcome to the unveiling of a new Patriot Burial marker commemorating the Revolutionary War service of James Weston. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge some of the people we have in attendance. Representing the Anderson Falls Heritage Society are Liz Smith, June Vanette, Barb Danella, Mary Hughes, Marion English, Jeff and Mary Ellen Dengler, Julie Preston, Nancy Smith, Allison Arnold, and Romine Prescott. I would also like to acknowledge the Town of Osable Supervisor, Mr. Tim Brissett. And we have some representatives of the Weston family here today. We have Diane Baker and Frank Preston, and I know there are some other descendants of James Weston. If you're a descendant of James Weston, would you please raise your hand? I don't have everybody's name. So we have 1, 2, 3, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm counting 7 descendants of James Weston here today. I'd also like to take a moment to thank some of the people who made it possible for us to place this marker here today. Thank you to the Town of Osable Highway Department for their assistance with setting the pole, and to Jeff Dengler for setting the sign. Thank you to Nancy Smith and to the Empire State Society Sons of the Revolution for their work in applying for the grant to fund this marker. I would also like to thank the musicians who are joining us today. William Smith on bagpipes, Cadence Spooner on saxophone, and Bill Long on bugle. And I just want to say, I think this is the first time we've ever had live music at one of these unveilings, and it's a very welcome addition. We will begin this ceremony with the posting of colors, followed by our national anthem, and then a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
Mr. Tim Brissett, Town of Osable Supervisor, will now say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to see so many descendants here in attendance. That's a great thing. So, very nice. Good afternoon. esteemed guests, members of the Anderson Falls Heritage Society, representatives of the Empire State Society Sons of the American Revolution, and the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. Thank you all for joining us on this historic occasion. Today we gather to honor Sergeant Major James Weston, a true patriot who served with courage in the American Revolutionary War. Born in 1755, James Weston answered the call to fight for our nation's independence, serving from Massachusetts before making his home here in New York. Alongside his wife, Sally Witherell Weston, he built a life in Clintonville, leaving a legacy that endures in this community and in the heart of a grateful nation. This marker, generously funded by the William G. Pomeroy Foundation's Patriot Burials program, stands as a testament to James Weston's service and sacrifice. It also reflects the collaborative efforts of the Anderson Falls Heritage Society and the Empire State Society Sons of the American Revolution to preserve the memory of those who fought for our freedom. As we unveil this marker, we not only commemorate one man's contributions, but also reaffirm our commitment to remembering all who helped shape our nation. May this site at Riverview Cemetery serve as a place of reflection and inspiration for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. This marker was made possible through the philanthropy of the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, who provided grant funding. The Pomeroy Foundation was unable to send a representative to be here this afternoon, but they did send a letter which they have asked us to read. Our Vice President, Liz Smith, will read the letter from the Pomeroy Foundation.
William G. Pomeroy Foundation, congratulations on this milestone occasion as you dedicate your new Patriot Burials historical marker at Riverview Cemetery, honoring the Revolutionary War Sergeant Major James Weston of the Massachusetts line. At the Pomeroy Foundation, a core part of our mission is to help communities celebrate their local history by providing fully funded grants for historical markers. Established in 2005 by entrepreneur and philanthropist Bill Pomeroy, the foundation is the nation's leading funder of historical markers, having awarded 3,000 grants across 49 states and Washington, D.C. Every Pomeroy marker we fund tells a story, honors a legacy, and strengthens the fabric of a community. What truly sets our markers apart is our unwavering commitment to historical accuracy, our gold standard. The Patriot Burials Marker Program holds special meaning to Bill Pomeroy, who is a proud member of the Sons of the American Revolution. His lifelong passion for history and personal experience visiting historical markers with his father inspired the creation of the Foundation's first marker program. When Bill discovered that New York State had stopped funding its marker program decades ago, he launched the Foundation's New York-based program to help fill the gap. That effort became the springboard for the Foundation's range of marker grant programs, including Patriot Burials. We are honored to partner with the Empire State Society of the Sons of the American Revolution and the other state societies of the SAR to recognize and preserve the legacies of those who fought in or were involved with the struggle for our nation's independence. The SAR's work to mark and commemorate the final resting places of American patriots is important, and we deeply appreciate the dedication of everyone involved in this project, especially the Anderson Falls Heritage Society and Columbia Mid-Hudson Valley Chapter of the SAR. We're proud to celebrate this milestone with you and are confident this Pomeroy marker will ensure that the legacy of Sergeant Major James Weston and the contributions of other Revolutionary War veterans will be honored and remembered for generations to come. Thank you and congratulations from all of us at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. With gratitude and best wishes, Bill Brower, Executive Director, William G. Pomeroy Foundation.
Thank you, Liz. Ms. Diane Baker, a descendant of James Weston, will now say a few words about his life and service.
On behalf of James Weston and my family, thank you everyone for coming today. This is truly a special day. It is not every day that someone born on Earth 270 years ago, sorry that makes me choked up, is remembered and honored. I also need to thank a few people. This journey that I have been on for the past 21 years began with my cousin Marion Stoughton Perky, who graciously left a copy of a family chart at a family reunion back in 2004. The chart lit a spark in me to understand who the Westons were and how I was related to them. I can proudly say that I am a great granddaughter of James and wife Sally Witherell Weston. To my husband Tim and my boys, Timmy and Jake, thank you for allowing me the time and your patience that I needed in order to research this. To my family, my father Frank, my mother Julie, my Aunt June and Jim, cousin Sue, Uncle Tom, and Nancy, thank you for being here today. It means the world to me. To the people who speak my language, genealogy, Julie, Pam, Phil, Suzanne, Muriel, Louise, and Reverend Denny, thank you for listening. Thank you for validating and encouraging and collaborating with me on all things Weston. To my cousin, Trisha Dingwell Thompson, here today from Montana. Thank you for enduring my endless questions, my theories and my hunches, for listening and collaborating. But most importantly, thank you for partnering with me to solve a mystery that has haunted the Weston family for 185 years. I think James and Sally would be proud of us. Who was James Weston? He was a patriot. A patriot is a person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it when necessary. That is why we are here today, to commemorate and honor James for his services in the American Revolution. Patriots believe in independence and freedom from oppression. Based upon what I've discovered about the family, they certainly embodied those ideals. I believe that he was a natural-born leader. He was respected. He was revered, and he left his mark here in the Ausable Valley. I believe that to his family, he was a legend. When I began to research the family, I was shocked by the number of descendants who either carried the initial J or W or were named James or Weston and not within their surnames. I don't think I've ever seen a biographical sketch from the first few generations that has not mentioned James Weston. Consistent themes in these sketches are he was a descendant of Edmund Weston who came to Plymouth in 1635. He was a descendant of a Mayflower passenger, George Soule, and he was from Massachusetts, and he was a distinguished veteran from the American Revolution. James was the son of James Weston Sr. and Abigail Dunham. He was born in Middleborough, Plymouth County, Massachusetts, June 30th, 1755. By 1771, the Weston family had relocated to from Middleborough to a town called New Braintree in Worcester County, Massachusetts. New Braintree is located in central Massachusetts. James was a Minuteman representing the town of New Braintree, and on April 19, 1775, his company marched to the alarm in Lexington. Under command of the same company, they marched again on August 1st, 1775. James re-enlisted January of 1776 in Captain Peter Harwood's company for 1 year, and at the completion of the term, James was discharged from service in Verplanck, New York. During that same year of 1776, on July 4th, the United States declared independence from Great Britain. James re-enlisted again in 1777 as a sergeant for a three-year term in the Continental Army. under the command of Captain Abel Holding and Thomas Nixon in the Massachusetts 6th Regiment. During that year, James Weston was at the Battle of Danbury. He was also at the answer to the Bennington Alarm in August of 1777. But most importantly, James was at the Battle of Saratoga. In that battle, there were 330, there were two battles, but within the two battles, there were 330 American casualties. James Weston later reported in his affidavit for pension that he was present in the undertaking of General Burgoyne on October 17, 1777. 2 days after the surrender of General Burgoyne, James Weston experienced a loss that was likely one he never forgot. His eldest brother, Jonathan Weston, who was also within the same regiment, died in Saratoga on October 19, 1777, 2 days after the surrender. Jonathan has been listed as a participant in the Battle of Saratoga. No other information has been found, but I think we can assume he either died from an injury from one of the two battles, or possibly an illness, as was very common back then. James Weston was appointed Sergeant Major April 10, 1779, and he served in that commission until his departure from service in the summer of 1780. In summary, James Weston served for a period of 5 years as a private, a sergeant, and a sergeant major. Shortly after his return to New Braintree in 1780, James Weston's younger brother, Elijah Weston, also entered into the American Revolution. It is unclear whether he died as a result of the war, but what is known is that he engaged March 10th of 1781, and according to New Braintree town records, he died 9 months later, in December 13th of 1781. James Weston would go on to name his firstborn son, Elijah Weston. James Weston married Sally Witherell August 12, 1784. This marriage took place 6 days before his mother, Abigail Dunham Weston, died in New Braintree on August 18, 1784. There are no town or church records for this marriage, but I suspect that they may have been married within the Weston home to enable his mother to see him married before she died. James and Sally's first two sons, Elijah and James, were both born in New Braintree in 1785 and 1786 respectively. And in that same year, James Weston's father, James Weston Sr., died October 26th of 1786. After the American Revolution, the United States was governed by the Articles of Confederation. The United States of America and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts were in great debt after the American Revolution. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts began to use tax collection as a method to restore financial stability. Most Massachusetts veterans were farmers. Some were compensated by the towns, but there was no formal pension system, and the veterans began to feel the squeeze of the taxes. Naturally, the men of this newly independent country began to feel angry and began to push back against the harsh taxation that they found themselves in. Tensions elevated until 1786. Interestingly, the veterans of a town that once used to be unified began to take sides. There were those that side with Daniel Shea and his rebels, and there were others who sided with the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. R. James and his brother-in-laws, Sampson Witherell and George Witherell, served the governor to protect the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Their mission was to dismantle and defuse Daniel Shea and the rebels. Shea's rebellion is considered the last conflict of the American Revolution. It ended in February of 1787, and it appears that this conflict likely divided families, neighbors, and friends in the town of New Braintree. James' service in Shea's rebellion was never documented in his Revolutionary War pension. James and Sally and their two sons soon left in 1787. They remained in Vermont until 1795. They appear in Clinton County court records in 1795. James had a durable lease of 100 acres in the southeast corner of Lot 22. And where that is if you go down Route 9 and you see Cold Springs Road, just past Cold Springs Road would have been where their 100 acres stood. By November of 1812, James Weston found himself once again in the middle of rising tensions leading up to the War of 1812. Both Essex and Clinton counties began to form militias. Although I have not found proof, I would not be surprised if he may have been involved. What is known is that 4 of his sons served in the War of 1812. Elijah, James, Samuel, and Aaron. Not only did they serve in the War of 1812, but they were present at the Battle of Plattsburgh. James Weston first filed for a pension in 1819, and when it was granted, he was granted a pension of $8 a month, which began on March 4th of 1823. The family asked for an increase in his pension in the 1830s based upon the fact that he was a sergeant major. That also was granted, and his pension raised to $10 per month. In terms of James Weston's livelihood when he lived here in Clinton County, I think it is safe to say that he was a farmer. He definitely was involved in civic duties. I have found him listed as a juror, a plaintiff witness, a defendant. I've seen him listed as a witness of several deed transactions. According to one of the descendants, James Weston was a school teacher and a pious man. I've not found any proof of this, but I'm sure that is probably true. James and Sally had 11 children, and all 11 children married and settled on either side of the Ausable River. James III, Harvey, Samuel, and Flavia settled in Chesterfield. Sophia initially settled in Chesterfield and later moved to Jay. Aaron lived in Wilmington, Essex County. Eldest son Elijah and Zacchaeus lived in the Plattsburgh region. Daughter Sally Weston Ferris lived in Peru, and daughter Polly Mary Weston, my great-grandmother, lived in Ausable, and she lived on the property adjacent to where James and Sally lived. James Weston died on May 22nd or 23rd, depending on the source, in 1840. His wife Sally died 12 hours later. They both died in the Mace homestead. That was the house of their daughter, Polly Weston Mace. That house stands today on Route 9. Again, if you go past Cold Springs Road and you see this beautiful red house up on a hill, that was their home.
Honey, you gotta call that 9N.
9N? Okay, sorry, 9N, sorry. Okay. James and Sally Weston were buried in the same grave, here in the Riverview Cemetery. The family of the Westons and what they did as patriots goes far beyond even what James did in the American Revolution or what his sons did in 1812. James and Sally's sons, Elijah, Abner, and Zacchaeus Newcomb, have all been identified as abolitionists and members of the West Peru Anti-Slavery Society. And some of their homes have been implicated as Underground Railroad stops. Granddaughter Elmira Mace, who grew up in the Mace homestead on Route 9N, married a very famous man in this area, Wendell Lansing. He was an abolitionist, and he was a newspaper editor of several newspapers in this area. Several of James Weston's descendants within the 2 generations following him served in the Civil War. Descendants of James and Sally Weston's children included brothers, nephews, uncles, and cousins. Some enlisted together, some served together. 4 grandsons and 11 great-grandsons served in the Civil War. And 13 gentlemen who married into the family to granddaughters or great-granddaughters also served in the Civil War. All served in the Union Army except one. Many sustained injuries that impacted the remainders of their lives. 6 were prisoners of war, 3 escaped, and 3 perished. These men were in POW camps that were some of the most notorious Confederate prisons: Andersonville, Libby, and Salisbury. Those who survived likely suffered from a medical condition that has only recently been recognized: post-traumatic stress disorder, after the things that they saw and the injuries they sustained. James Weston was a descendant of Mayflower passenger George Soule. James and Sally Witherell Weston had 112 grandchildren. That legacy can be seen across the United States. Within this cemetery where we stand today, the Riverview Cemetery, 8 generations of my family are buried in this cemetery. James Weston's service to our country is indisputable. He lived during one of the most crucial times in history. I would like to thank him for being a patriot and fighting for our freedom. Thank you for the courage and strength to serve and not desert during the American Revolution. And thank you for continuing to serve even when those who were most precious to you were lost. I would also like to thank him for the fortitude and perseverance to embark into uncharted territories when he came to Peru, Clinton County, in 1795. Your children were an amazing group of individuals. They were shrewd businessmen and women. I was flabbergasted when I realized the amount of property in Clinton and Essex County his children and grandchildren had purchased, they had bought and sold. It was truly, they were in the lumber business, they were in the ore business, they were leaders, they were politicians, they were philanthropists, they believed in education, and they were involved in many of the local school districts. They were Christians, and they were involved in the building of some of the local churches. They were soldiers, they were abolitionists, and it is quite evident to me that they were very loyal to each other. They lived next to each other, they lived across from each other, they provided for each other in times of need, they partnered in business transactions and ventures, they stood behind the beliefs and causes that have shaped this country. Their visions would continue to push this great country to grow, improve, and evolve. You and Sally should be proud. I am proud to call them my family, and you my great-grandfather. Thank you. Very nice.
The marker will now be unveiled by descendants of James Weston. So any James Weston descendant who wants to participate, please come up and
we should put the pole down.
Mm-hmm. Wait, do you want to take our picture? We Weston descendants? Come on, everybody. Come on, Sue. Don.
Gather round.
We're going to have our picture taken.
okay.
It was covered.
Where we smile, like where we all actually smile, you know.
Very nice.
Okay, all done?
My mouth hurts.
The Sons of the American Revolution will now lay a wreath. Please join us at the Clintonville United Methodist Church over here for a reception. And if anybody would like to take a short walk and see the actual grave of James Weston, Jeff Dingler will lead the way for us. Thank you all for coming.
Very nicely done. Thank you. Which one is this one right here?
Mm-hmm. James and Sally, yeah.
What a piece.
Got that on?
Share the story of my uniform. I've shared it with a few people individually already, but I did a little research on my own on Sergeant Major Weston and found that he was in the 6th Massachusetts in Nixon's brigade. Well, one of my reenactment units is the 3rd Massachusetts, who was also in Nixon's brigade, all at Saratoga. And in the early war, Massachusetts troops were issued brown coats, many with the white facing. But yet some units had different color facings. For example, the 10th Massachusetts had a green facing. So I'm not sure if the 6th Massachusetts did or not, but it's likely that Sergeant Major Weston at Saratoga was wearing a brown coat with either white or some other facing. Nixon's brigade was camped on the right of the American line at Bemis Heights. Up on the hill was the Nielsen House, where Benedict Arnold's headquarters were. I was able to camp there 3 weeks ago with the 10th Massachusetts, 3rd Massachusetts and 10th Massachusetts camped there. And it's very interesting to go back and camp on that hallowed ground and know that at least the unit that you represent was there as well. My Patriot relative was not at Saratoga. Their Connecticut units served more to the south, like in Pennsylvania and so on. So they weren't at Saratoga. But still, you have a connection. And when you go through this research with the Sons of American Revolution or the Daughters of American Revolution, and you find, everybody finds an incredible story. And it's really a nice journey. And I'm very proud to be able to come here today and wear this uniform and feel a connection to Sergeant Major Weston and the 6th Massachusetts Regiment. And if you have any other questions, I'll stick around for a while. And if anybody has any questions,
can you just stand there for a minute so we can take a picture here?
I can. Oh, and by the way, the hats were different because in June of 1777 in Albany, the 3rd Massachusetts was issued these light infantry caps that were captured by a privateer from a British ship off the coast. So all of a sudden, just like that, 3rd Mass had a light infantry unit, and they had those from Saratoga, and so that's kind of the impression that we do for 1777 is the brown face white with this hat. Later in the war, they received blue coats with a white facing. So when they were in Mohawk Valley later in the war, they would have those coats. The uniform, the rest of the uniform, waistcoats were appropriate to have. have, as well as your shirt. And if you, the shirt that you had was also your night shirt. So it's a kind of a long shirt. Breeches, trousers were big as well. So these breeches with the wool socks were fairly commonly seen. Or a soldier may have also had just a regular pair of trousers on, which was a common thing to see. And probably not in this good a shape. After marching around for several months, it's amazing how quickly this will deteriorate. So, you know, you can imagine holes, patches, stuff, some things missing. It's probably, and dirty. That's probably more like what those soldiers look like. And if you're lucky enough to have shoes, otherwise you were barefoot or wrapped. They were, you get a feeling for how incredibly strong and brave these men must have been to endure the conditions of being endured. Besides just the hardships of marching and being out in the open all the time and battle, you read the stories of smallpox, measles, and all these other kinds of things that many of us don't even think about. But they had a real fear of them.
Can you just turn around so it's...
Absolutely.
Carry a gun.
Yeah. And I was just saying to one gentleman that I'm also a regular volunteer at Fort Ticonderoga. We make so I made all of this, and we make our own stuff or through workshops or the tailors there make from either original pattern copies from originals, patterns that we make from originals. This is probably the closest thing you'll see to an original uniform. It's very well done. I like in the syntax, costuming. I think today costumes are more of maybe a stage kind of thing, or for theater or something. These are the effort that places like Ticonderoga put into their uniforms, and the standards and the authenticity are very well thought out. And so, when you look at me, I want you to think of them. And that's the standard that I try to uphold. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you. Yes.
Did the fort precede the war, or was that built after the war?
I'm sorry, say again? Fort Ticonderoga?
Did it precede them?
Yeah, it was there for the French Indian War, actually, yeah. So,
okay.
And then the French blew it up. A good portion of it up in 1759. The British took over. Benedict Arnold, Ethan Allen Green Mountain Boys captured it May 1775, went back into American hands. Burgoyne captured it back in July of 1777. And then after Saratoga, it was abandoned. It was built in 1735. All right. Well, thank you.
Going to be Bill Long.
I've been asked to talk a little bit about that call I did. Probably not recognizable to a lot of you. It's actually in Winfield Scott's Army Manual from 1835. This is statute number 8 and 9. But it derives from an earlier French call, which translates to douse the fires. That was their last call of the day, a signal to end their duties and put out the lights, basically douse all the fires. And you can see where the end part is sort of like the proto-taps in a way. That slow section at the very end. Taps wasn't written until the Civil War after a great battle. Colonel Butterfield got together with his regimental bugler, and I think they used that call, but just the slow part, and they created taps out of that. So that's why I like to play that one, because it creates our taps, and it's more contemporary with the Revolutionary War period of time. That's all I really have to say about that.
It's a bugle that you play.
Right.
So, I'm the one that came up to you and noticed that,
Okay.
it sounds kind of silly, but can you explain that to everybody?
No valves, so I don't know if you ever seen a vibrating string between 2 points, and if you put your finger in the very middle of it, it'll vibrate in half, and that'll show that note will be an octave higher. But then if you divide it by 3 and you put your finger there, it'll vibrate, and that'll be like a fifth above the top note. So there's this harmonic series. I think it was discovered by Pythagoras way back when, right? And so the old, you'll see those old herald trumpets that are just all straight, like, you know. So they can play like a certain series of notes, the fundamental, the fifth, the octave, then a third, then another fifth. Then it gets weird up there. And back before valves were invented, they would play these horns, and they would play them really high in the range, and they could play all kinds of notes. And they had to lip every note differently, right? So it's sort of like a French horn. I don't know if anybody's familiar with French horns, but it's hard to play them because the notes stack so close together once you get high enough on that frequency, on those overtones and stuff. So, and a lot of the French horn range are already in that area because of the way the tubing is and how conical it is. So the bugle that I played on is actually sort of like an old, it's actually like a British bugle. The standard army bugles of nowadays, they can get the low note, but my Boy Scout bugle couldn't get that note. So they're a little bit different, and they're more of a cylindrical bore, the American bugles. So they pierce, the sound pierces a little more. That one I played today is an older, it's more of a conical bore. So it has a more mellow tone. Still sounds pretty good, but it has more like a flute horn or a French horn sound. Not quite as brash as a trumpet or like a trombone is another one. It has a cylindrical bore and has a tone that really can punch through. But yeah, so I can't play that call on my old Boy Scout bugle, but I can get it on that British bugle. So and there's still a note missing in the call. There's actually a third in the lower octave. And I think it was originally, like I said, it was a French call, and they used those like honey horns that were kind of like a round French horn, but without valves, and they could get that note in that lower octave. So I have to kind of make an adjustment because the note doesn't.
Noticed there were some flags placed at the gravesite, and Jeff Degler, our member, was thoughtful enough to get a current 2025 flag as well as Betsy Ross style from the Revolutionary War period. So if you didn't get to go out there because of the terrain or the weather, Mary fortunately has made a recording which will in the future be on the Anderson Falls YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see all of that from the comfort of your home. So we do grateful for all the descendants who have come here to share their stories to help us better appreciate the service that he provided. So now Diane has offered to answer questions or to explain your materials in the back. There's some other resources. We just wanted to give you a few, and then you can mingle and come up and ask her.
Okay. Yeah, so they're in the back of the room. There's a notebook with a pen. If anybody wants to contact me, my email, my cell phone number is on there. There's also a pile of stapled papers that say the life of James Weston. A lot of that is the research that brought me here today. So that's back there in case anyone's interested in that. I can also email people copies of that. Yeah, this family was, the more and more I dug into it, the more shocked I was just about the way they left their mark in this area. It was really humbling. So if anybody has any questions, though, I barely went over what I had. So if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Does the town of Weston in Massachusetts have any relationship to the family?
I would tell you my guess is it probably does, because when Edmund Weston, which was the original gentleman that came to this country in 1635 with the surname Weston, from him a lot of descendants started spreading all throughout Massachusetts. So it would not surprise me if that town being named Weston has something to do with one of Edmund Weston's descendants. That would not shock me, but I don't know that for a fact. Anything else?
Also, the signature in your program, you'll see that that is James Weston's actual signature that Diane shared with us. So it seems like he had some education.
Yeah, actually, Tricia, she and I have been working on a research project together, and she's a Weston descendant like myself. I come from Polly Weston, she comes from Aaron Weston. That was actually exactly what Tricia said when I showed her the signature that I had sent to you. In addition to the fact, she and I had already seen his signature on other documents, and that is exactly what she was saying to me when I sent that to you, was that he must have been an educated man, because that was the signature of someone who definitely was educated.
So do take a time to look at those materials in the back, and Diane has come from Albany.
Oh.
And we've had other descendants here from Montana. This is a chance to hear firsthand any stories that might be interesting. Because Clintonville, as you know, is small. A lot of families connect to one another. So even if you don't recognize the Weston surname, you might have parts of your family connecting for other reasons. So, and everybody builds the community up. And here we are. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you to the Methodist folks from Clintonville United Methodist for their hospitality to give us a place out of the rain to visit and share and learn.
I'm smiling from ear to ear.
Yeah.
I mean, the Westons attended this church. I mean, this was their church. So, I mean, I do know that.
Is there a bathroom downstairs? Is there a bathroom downstairs? Yes. There is a restroom through that door downstairs if you need to.
Yes, they went for over 100 years without one. But we're proud to tell you.
James Weston was never in that bathroom. Never in that. Thank you so much.